Welcome to the Freight Project podcast, brought to you by Cerasis, a North American third-party logistics company providing shippers transportation management technology and solutions.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Freight Project podcast. On today's podcast episode, Cerasis welcomes Jennifer Jacobson, the Cerasis Accounting and Finance Manager. Jennifer's role at Cerasis is to manage the accounting and finance department, financial preparation and review, as well as oversee human resources. You'll get to learn about how Jennifer's work in various accounting roles in a manufacturing environment as manufacturing controller gave her knowledge from the shipper's perspective, and now how she sees things from a carrier or third-party logistics point of view. On this episode, Jennifer and I will discuss from an accounting perspective, how does it customer benefit when working with Cerasis? Jennifer then shares from her experience why it is important that carriers are paid on time and what that means for improved carrier relations. And because of her work day in and day out in the transportation finance sector, Jennifer outlines why a shipper should audit all of their freight invoices. And finally, Jennifer will outline what other cost considerations should shippers make when it comes to understanding total costs beyond the freight rate itself. We hope you enjoy this episode of the Freight Project Podcast. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this episode of the Freight Project Podcast. We're excited to have Jennifer Jacobson of Cerasis here today. Thanks for taking the time to chat with us a little bit today on the Ask the Expert show.
Absolutely.
Now, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do here at Cerasis.
I am the finance manager for Cerasis. My role is to manage the accounting and finance department, do financial preparation and financial reviews. My accounting team is responsible for accounts payable, accounts receivable, cash application, customer credit and collections, invoice adjustments, payroll, and other accounting functions. In addition, I also oversee the human resources department.
Oh, that's a lot under your purview, a lot of folks to manage. So have you always been in the freight industry, or are you more have an accounting background? How'd you get involved in the freight side of the world?
Well, quite simply, Adam, I responded to a search for an accounting manager back in 2008, and I've been here ever since then. So prior to Cerasis, I worked in various accounting roles in a manufacturing environment. That led to my role as manufacturing controller. Being in the manufacturing environment, I had knowledge from the shipper's perspective. So that was helpful in the current role. Now I see things from the carrier or the third-party logistics point of view.
Oh, well, that's exciting. I mean, you know the pain from an accounting perspective that shippers face on the day-to-day. So that puts you in a very unique position to help them now in your role working for Cerasis as a 3PL. And so as you think through that from an accounting perspective, how does a customer benefit in hiring a 3PL like Cerasis? What do they gain from some of our services that we provide them?
So from an accounting perspective, there are several benefits of working with Cerasis. First of all, we have a proprietary web-based application that is user-friendly, and the customer makes the decisions based on the criteria for a particular shipment. So for example, you consider when the product needs to arrive at its destination. Is it next day, 2 days, 5 days? Does it matter? Is there a time limit? And then you have a selection of several carriers so you can determine which carrier offers the right service and pricing for what you require. Another advantage would be that Cerasis receives and audits and processes all freight invoices for payment. So your accounting team, as our customer, your accounting team does not need to receive, review, and process all of those invoices. Another benefit would be that Cerasis employees contact the carrier to resolve issues. The issue could be an error in billing. They could have omitted billing for something or added something that wasn't necessary. We also have a claims team that files and follows up on all loss and damage claims on behalf of our customer. So right there, those items are taking a workload off your accounting staff's shoulders.
Yeah, that'd be tough to do all on your own without some sort of system or process in place. It could be pretty time consuming. And what about all those invoices they receive each week? I mean, do they have to pay each one of those individually, or how does that work?
Well, another benefit of working with Cerasis is that we provide one consolidated weekly invoice listing every shipment from all the carriers for that week. So as opposed to the customer receiving 60 invoices for the 60 shipments that were made in that week, Cerasis receives all those, and then we combine it and roll it up into one consolidated invoice. The customer pays Cerasis, but Cerasis pays all of the carriers. So the customer is looking at one detailed invoice every week. In addition, our customer's accounts payable then only enters that one consolidated invoice, and it's payable to Cerasis, not payable to several different carriers. So again, the customer pays Cerasis, and we pay all of those carriers on behalf of our customers.
So we're paying those on time and up front before we even get our money back, making sure that carriers are paid in a very timely manner. Now, one of the things that, as you know and hear from our customers, and as we collaborate as a management team, is that they're facing things like the capacity crunch. They're seeing increased freight shipment because of an improved economy. But because of that capacity crunch, shippers are, trying to become shipper of choice, right? And so part of that has to be paying carriers on time, right? So why is paying carriers on time important to overall carrier relations and making sure you as a shipper are seen favorably by your carrier partners?
Sure. Cerasis has the relationship with the carrier, and we actually consider them our carrier partners. Timely payment to them builds trust, and it's important for Cerasis to continue having that great relationship and having the trust with the carrier. So as with any vendor, timely payment allows for uninterrupted service as well. So really, essentially, Cerasis' relationship with our carriers is extremely important. We are able to count on them to be there for our customers and to work with us to resolve any issues or potential claims that arise.
Well, I can see how that timely payment and creating that trust is super important to becoming shipper of choice. So, as you work in finance day in and day out, especially transportation finance, one of the things is that we pay people, and payment's so critical. And part of carrier relations is building trust. But what if there's an issue with the invoice? And why should shippers even audit their invoices to catch errors by the carrier? Doesn't that upset the apple cart with the carrier?
No, I think, every company should audit their invoices. So it's important to audit freight invoices. You should know what it costs to ship your product from point A to point B. And whether you are a manufacturer shipping that product or your Cerasis auditing invoices, you need to understand what it actually costs. The price is really dependent upon timing. So sometimes there's a variance in price if you select that a shipment has to arrive at the destination next day, 2 days, or 5 days. And then it depends on the carrier that you. So when an invoice arrives, you need to review the charges, compare the invoice to what was expected for the cost of that shipment going from point A to point B. Was there something missed on the invoice, or were there possibly additional charges? If, for example, a liftgate or residential delivery fee was added, they could be accurate costs, and they would be if delivered to a home. And in order to offload product safely, they needed to use a liftgate. So you need to consider those items. And then I think when you're auditing the invoice, it's really important to contact the carrier to discuss and get more information on the fees, especially if you feel the charges are not valid. So the team members at Cerasis take care of all of this on behalf of our customers.
Gosh, that's just really a lot to keep up with as a shipper as you explain, some of these processes. A lot of, me in marketing, right? I write about some of these things, or the industry writes about them, and they're just making it seem simple. I just got to procure a truck and it'll get to my customer. There's 1,000 other details that go behind that are soft costs that can take up time, or frustrations, or even hard costs because you're getting a fee, like a lift gate that maybe you shouldn't have, or they said it was heavier than you listed, and you had a scale yourself to make it accurate. So you really got to check those things, and that's super, super important to save money overall. And with that said, transportation budgets, kind of like your electricity bill, are often seen as a cost center. Oh, I just have to spend that. But it seems like any savings in transportation goes right to the bottom line. However, many shippers look to save costs by going maybe with the cheapest option, and they have really just this narrow view of their cost when they're only looking at the freight rates, as it seems. So what other cost considerations should shippers make when it comes to understanding total cost beyond just the rate that they're charged for the shipment itself?
It's true that companies are always looking to trim costs. Many companies save money by using the least cost carrier. And in many cases, this is fine, this is accurate. But you also have to consider that at times, the least cost carrier may not be the most cost effective. There are other considerations that you need to consider. So you need to broaden your scope. So if, for example, the shipment is time sensitive, can the least cost carrier actually get the product to its destination on time? If the shipment is time sensitive and needs to arrive by a certain date, and that lower cost carrier cannot get it there by that time, then that's not an option. Another thing you need to look at to broaden your scope is the services provider. Does the carrier offer the service you require, such as special handling or a white glove type of service? The last item is prior experience. So every customer has prior experience with a carrier, and that needs to be considered. Has the customer used that least cost carrier previously? What was the result? Were they reliable and timely? Were there any issues? So all of these items need to be considered when you're selecting a carrier. Dealing with a late arrival of a shipment, having product damaged that needs to be sent back and be remanufactured and then reshipped to your customer. All of that needs to be considered, and it can be more costly in the long run than actually choosing the appropriate carrier that may or may not be the least cost.
Hey, it's kind of like, I know when I was younger and in college, I may have only had enough money to eat ramen, but if I really thought about the total cost of eating ramen every day for 4 years and the toll on my body long term, I might have said, hey, I know it's a few cents more, but maybe it's worth my long-term health not to eat ramen every day, and maybe choose fruit or something like that.
And honestly, Adam, I think that as consumers, we make the choice that at the time seems to be the best option, but then you live and you learn, right? Yeah. So ramen, great example, but using that to talk about freight, that's why it's so important to consider what you already know and add that to the equation of selecting the proper carrier.
Yeah. Yeah, and it sounds like, doing all you can to get visibility into your accounting, to understand your processes and really look at the total, not just the short-term cost, but the long-term impact that it can have on your shipment. Maybe it really goes down to just getting everybody on the same page at the organization and what you're trying to achieve and what everybody in each department is trying to achieve. And it sounds like finance's role or accounting's role in transportation is really being able to be that rock of, hey guys, we've got to consider the impact on what you stated was your goals from a financial aspect. And it takes maybe some technology and maybe a good partner like a Cerasis or another 3PL out there to help you really formalize that program. So Thanks for your insights today, Jennifer. Really great to hear this perspective. I don't think it's something that gets enough coverage in the industry, but transportation accounting is huge, and you're the reason our and the helm of that here at Cerasis, and the reason our customers get that great service, and our people obviously working on behalf of them every single day. So thank you for what you do, and thanks a lot for being on the Freight Project podcast today and the Ask the Expert show. Jennifer Jacobson, the finance manager and oversees the HR department as well. Have a good one, and thanks again. We'll see you on the next episode in a couple weeks. Take care, everybody.